Nothing could have prepared us for Harvey. I don't care. The best laid plans in any municipal emergency operations center could have prepared you for that. You know, I was over technical rescue for 5 years before I came to Fives, and you know, we had plans and contingencies and, like I said, everything in place for a local flood event. You know, like you had even the what was it? Tax Day parade, flooding, or what's it? So there was a couple, Memorial, yeah, a couple of those, and again, those were beyond local flood events. So those were still, to some extent, a global event, meaning it was all over Houston simultaneously. But you know, we talked so long and hard about how ill prepared we were and the equipment we did and didn't have, so like that. Well, I don't care who you were. There was nobody who was going to be prepared, equipped for Harvey. That was a global event. I mean, it affected everybody in the city and county.
Yeah, that was from what I can recall, it was another civilian that was doing his own water rescues on a canoe along the bayou around Willcrest. And I believe the story is that he had fallen in and had drowned. And so someone, actually I believe it was an off-duty fireman, because I remember the guy, he pulled him up into the boat. They started doing CPR. They took him over to the bridge there at the bayou in Willcrest. And Station 57, Engine 57 was there, and we were dispatched there as well. And we were just doing the whole cardiac arrest resuscitation type of thing in terms of doing CPR, dropping IV lines and medications and whatnot. The story with that was the family was real religious, and I remember Captain Steckler, the family was talking to Captain Steckler while we were doing our whole resuscitation, and the family was asking if we can pause for a moment just for a quick prayer as we're loading them up into the ambulance. And so Captain Steckler and the family were doing that while we were still, of course, going on and on. And the funny thing with that is that we did get pulses back within a couple rounds from that. And then of course we transported to the hospital. But that was a neat thing, you know. And it was just pouring rain, of course. We're in our rain gear, and you're trying to focus doing all these different things. But yeah, that was one neat thing.
A house fire was reported. Well, they got within, and you're gonna have to tell this story better than I am, within a block or so, and this guy had an air intake leak, so obviously he was starting, if he got too high in the water, he was starting to suck water, so he had to stop, and they bailed off and walked down there and basically chest deep water with their full firefighting gear on, and his house was fully involved. I want to say it's that one right there.
That's the one. Mm-hmm.
And
it was deep in the subdivision too.
And you know, fire apparatus are getting as close as they can. They can't even get close enough, so they're, you know, what we call skull dragging, but they're just basically pulling the hose and hand carrying it down. One guy, I mean, you know, if you could just know what all is in this water, you know, everybody just thinks, oh, man, it's just dirty water, maybe ants or like that, but you don't take into consideration everything that's been floating out of their garages, sewer systems, everything else. So, but this guy, you know, got to do what you got to do. Basically, you know, knows muscle memory, knowing our job. He took the cap off the 2.5 above water. Then he had to go underwater and attach the hose and everything else. So they were doing that. So there was another. I guess it was a jet drive boat that was here from Austin Fire Department, and they literally just backed it up in the front yard because obviously the water was that deep, and elevated it where they were using that as a nozzle.
Just stream it in.
Yeah, there you go.
It was pretty cool.
It made, and they actually
made it Huffington Post.
They made it to the. It was. I think they had a reporter from the DC Post, the Washington DC Post, riding with them.
It's a great.
And that's they got that, and it was a whole bunch of photos. It was in the Washington Post before it was in the Houston Chronicle. So, but it's just stories like that. That's the stuff that happened here in Harvey, and you there's no way on the face of this earth you can prepare. You can even plan for that. You know, that's called ingenuity. You know, on the fly, on the cuff, whatever. You know, but that's just the nature of firefighters' creativity. Again, you were saying, how do you prepare? Well, there's no guideline for a flood event like this and wearing your full protective gear. Our guideline says you're responding to and operating on the fire ground, you will wear your full protective gear. Well, they were responding and they were operating on the fire ground, but they were also operating in 3 foot of water. So it's while it's kind of protecting them from the fire, because obviously they weren't going to get close enough, they weren't going to go interior or anything like that. But the downside is it does exactly what she says. It slows them down. All that stuff is in now, contaminated their gear. So if once they get out of that, we don't have any extra gear to change out into, so now they're stuck having to put this stuff on again and again. So if they do make a working fire where they go interior, now they're taking a chance on steam burns, any other type of injuries that can occur. But again, firefighters are not people you're going to say you can't do that. I mean, they're the ones you got to hold by the belt and say just stop. And they don't like it, but that's just the way it is. They're going to do what they have to get the job done.
I'd say one of the things that HFD and a lot of the other responding individuals were lucky about is every single time, and I'm pretty sure you guys heard about it on the news, every time you go into somebody's backyard or alongside their house, you carry the heavy risk of getting electrocuted. And at least when our apparatus dropped us off and we were walking through people's backyards and fences, and after the fact I was like, oh yeah, somebody got stung a few times. But I just talk about how we're lucky nobody got electrocuted, because or fell in a pool.
That's true too. Could have fallen, because we were going through. All of a sudden, when we got out of that boat, out of the truck, and we started walking into the subdivision, and you just see a column of smoke in the distance. We were figuring, okay, well, naturally, let's just try to follow the streets and figure out which way to go. And then Camp Lily, as a group again, we all just figured, let's just beeline it to get there faster and stay out of the ditches. And we were going through people's yards, and that's true in terms of not knowing what's in people's yards, and that's where the beehive thing came through when we broke through one fence. But I guess, you just don't think in terms, right, you're suddenly stepping into a pool or something.
What he was talking about earlier about a pipe pole is anytime you're walking through water, you have to have something, and it makes sense. It's kind of like you're a blind person and you're using it because you're looking, main things we're looking for, obviously, are to find out where the street stops and you step up on the curb. But more importantly, you're looking for, and you would think, as heavy as these things are, manhole covers.
Oh yeah.
Those things blow off and they float around like styrofoam in situations like that. That's bad. So you've got to make sure that you don't step off in a hole or something like that, or like I said, swim pool or anything like that. And like I said, all the stuff floating around, debris, stuff out of people's garages.
I got my
it's one thing nobody's mentioned is ants. Ants are atrocious. Because they'll get up on a whole colony or whatever else, or you'll see something floating, and it's a whole big old swarm of ants or something like that. So a gear does protect you a little bit in that respect too. Rescue, we issue dry suits, but everybody kind of goes, well, the water's not cold enough. It has nothing to do with thermal more than does body substance isolation, because the suits that they wear have the PPE in them to protect them from bloodborne pathogens and things of that nature. Because it's, again, not that we're gonna dive off into a blood bank, but it's just, if you don't know what is floating in that water, and we don't. And the thing that kills me is, I don't know how many times I've seen it, where a family will just venture the kids and everybody out in the middle of the street in waist deep water to take a picture or something like that. We were all kids. We all went and run out and played in the street or in the gutters and stuff like that, in the rain, stuff like that. Okay, if it's flowing along the gutter, that's one thing, but this stuff was 3 feet, 4 feet deep, coming from the bayou, and it's full of ethyl methyl bad stuff. And you don't know what's in it. I couldn't even begin to put the chemical equation together, what all was in there. That's not including
fecal matter.
And there's current too. Some places we were in, there was a current.
And there's moving water. Yeah. You slip, and it didn't have to be but a couple of miles an hour. I mean, everybody's done a little time at Thunder River, one of those lazy river kind of things, and that's only moving like at 2 or 3 miles an hour, and you see how it carries you with no problem. Now think about if you've got your firefighting gear on or something like that, you get hit in the old coconut with a limb or something. I've seen refrigerators, washers, dryers, trash cans, coolers, everything known to man going down the bayou in a situation like that. So
during that fire, one thing that we were kind of laughing at the Army Reserve about was the gentleman or homeowner had a bunch of guns. Therefore, he had a bunch of ammo. So in the fire, it was just like going off left and right. And those the Army guys started ducking for cover. But any of us who did that firearm CE, basically it teaches you that unless the bullet is in the gun and in the barrel, you don't really have to worry about anything, because otherwise it's just a real loud firecracker. Mm-hmm. So throughout the fire, there's just ammo popping left and right. So when they call 911, you have to come out there. So like a lot of units were having difficulty going through high waters, but at the end of the day, you still have to make those runs. People still need your help, so you still need to go out there and, try to help them with their medical emergency as much as possible. And you have other people that feel like the news does not pertain to them. When they say shelter in place, the news says shelter in place, and they say, I can make it, right? So then you have a lot of people who get stranded, and around 6:10:59, you have a lot of people's cars that get submerged. Like, they tell you to shelter in place for a reason, and a lot of people don't feel like it applies to them. So then when you have to do high water rescues, you basically are stabbing around with, real long pipe holes, hoping that you don't hit a real deep spot as you go through the water or walk. But the problem with a lot of the storms like Hurricane Harvey is the runs, when they call 911, they don't just disappear at midnight. So like, even if they're old calls, you still have to make them. They just might not be applicable anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they said, okay, well, let's take half of y'all to go to Memorial City with Ben and the Chief, and they'll utilize us as part of the water rescues, and the other half will stay here and do your regular responses from here. And so that's how, in terms of here, it happened.
So I mean, it's like Chief said, that's something that we've never done before, and we hopefully will never do it again. But we had to do it then, and we adjusted and made it work as best we could, and it did. It did. Mm-hmm. I can only speak off my experiences, and I'm kind of uncertain of how they initially got, contacted. But when we were area command, Chief and I, and we were sending units out to, we would get an address, and I was writing down an address, trying to keep up as much I can, knowing that we're behind. But we got to send someone to check this location out and clear it. If they're there, and some were still there, whether they're deceased or not, some were still there, and some needed to be rescued. I tell you, a cool thing was, if there was a number, I just started calling the numbers. I was like, maybe it's going out on a limb, but maybe they'll answer. Mm-hmm. So I would call a number, and then some would answer, and I would be like, cool, hey, this is, Houston Fire Department, are you guys okay? And then we were able to get a lot accomplished that way, because they were able to tell us, we got out 5 hours ago. But in our system, it's still showing, hey, we need to check this address and make sure. So it was good to get citizens, and then some even called back, because I was like, well, let me just leave a message. I don't know, who knows? So I would call and I'd leave a message, please call back if you're safe. And I probably should have left my personal number, but I got some citizen calling back like days later when I'm off, just, hey, I'm just returning your call. I know it's days later, but I'm okay. Thank you for calling. And I was like, thank you for replying. Yeah.
So regularly, this station specifically has 6 people.
Oh, that was packed.
4 on the fire truck and 2 on the ambulance. and then of course you make your runs. Because of Harvey, there was the big recall of manpower, and so the strategy was to have 2 shifts on duty at a time. So we pretty much doubled from 6 to 12. One thing is, in terms of just the station management itself, you got 2 captains, equal rank, trying to figure out how to manage everybody. We only had a certain amount of beds, that can only fit 6 people. Now you got 12 people. So we had guys sleeping on couches, and I don't know, I guess the city provided cots, or someone provided cots.
Sleeping. So this event, as catastrophic as it was, the city did really well. I think as far as a community, and just really, coming together and trying to do right by the next person, black, white, Hispanic. None of that mattered. It was like, dude, you're in trouble. Let's try to help you. We can figure out the rest of, after that, when you're on dry land.
That whole Houston Strong thing, that was a good.
Real.
Whoever came up with that really nailed it on target. Because even when we were at the command over at the mall, all the food court restaurants were coming out, providing food for all the volunteers, and then they were just makeshift donation drop-offs. I mean, and it's just amazing, like how many different families from different parts of the world, in a sense, were just, dropping off cases of water to pillowcases to deodorant. There was families asking, hey, can we get y'all socks, underwear? I mean, just anything and everything.
And it was very reminiscent. I mean, from a personal level, this is pretty cool. I experienced it receiving in, and then also on the giving in. Like I said, coming from Katrina. But I was at a fire station, housed at a fire station in Katy around that time. So I kind of got to see, which really attracted me to being a fireman. How man, this is a blessing that these guys are doing this. This is awesome. It's more than just running in a building. Like this is hands on, And now being able to be the one hands on, giving back or helping in some way, and really feeling for that citizen that, hey, I've literally been there. 10 years ago, dude, I've been there.
Yeah, definitely never seen so many Shipley's donuts. Because what Mike was talking about is we were separate from where basically the collection point was, when the vehicles that would bring them in, dump trucks, high water vehicles, what have you, would bring them into a staging area, and we got a couple metro buses over there to get them out of the elements. And it wasn't raining. I've never seen so many happy people, when the sun finally came out. So, but they were over there, and people just kept coming up to us, and like he said, I mean, it was just amazing the amount of water, donut, and we kept telling them, you need to go over there. That's where the victims and all that. And they were emphatic. It was not for the victims, and it was for us. So it was very humbling.
I mean, separate.
Everything from kiddos to the elderly and stuff like that. Everybody wanted help. They couldn't bring a boat. They couldn't bring a gun. And they brought something for us. But they did. And I mean, the second day we were there, I'm trying to think of who all. Cheesecake Factory was there. Damaris Barbecue was there. And I mean, it wasn't just, they stayed for hours and prepared all this food for us and everything else. And again, here we are. Essentially, we could go home because we could at least go back to the firehouse, and the law enforcement people went back to where we were at, hotels, armories. They were taken care of there. And it felt kind of bad or embarrassed because here everybody was giving us this, and we still had, if you will, the shirt on our back, and these poor people had nothing. But the Houston Strong thing, it took off like wildfire. But that actually came from the Boston bombing. Everybody knows that. But it was so cool how it did, and in fact, for the longest time I had it on my bunker coat. But you just want everybody to remember, and for us to make sure that everybody appreciates the fact of what they did for us. I mean, everybody thinks that we did all this and that, whatever else, but at the end of the day, that's our job.